Tom Girl, where we talk all things sports, entertainment, fashion, and adventure. On this episode, we're talking to Broadway, theater, TV, and film actor, philanthropist, and self-proclaimed lover of boats and oysters, Julie Tolivar. I love it. Currently be seen on FX's Fleishman is in Trouble, streaming on Hulu. Welcome to the show, Julie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for taking the time.
Especially with the time change. I know you're all the way in LA and I'm on the East Coast, so.
Well, I know, and you're the one you're on the late end of it, and the storm's coming. I appreciate
I'm a night owl. It's all good.
Okay, good. Well, let's first talk about this new show, Fleishman is in Trouble, and how your role came to be, the audition process. Just give me all the details.
Yeah, so we shot, I guess, about a year ago now. And it was interesting. I was going on a girls' trip to Mexico, and this audition came up the night before I left, and I was packing, and I was thinking, oh God, can I really do this? Can I really prepare, fully? Because you never want to audition for something unless you feel like you've really prepared, and you don't want to just throw it together. And so I took a look at it and I was like, this sounds really fun. Like I liked the team that was involved with it. And it was interesting because one of the things originally that was supposed to be part of my character was she was supposed to be having a very intimate moment with a wax figure of Bret Michaels. And I'm thinking, how does that, am I okay with that? What is it? Why? And eventually that sort of changed. If you've seen the show, it ended up by being some photos that her and her friend had taken on a girls' trip to Vegas that Toby Fleishman, played by Jesse Eisenberg, takes a look at while he's my doctor, and he sees these pictures and he has this sort of image of who I am in his head, and that he imagines someone sort of complex and sophisticated, and then he sees these images and he realizes that I'm just this normal person who happens to love to party and went on this girls' trip, and his idea of me is sort of crashes to the ground. But I thought the part was funny and interesting, and I had this great scene with Jesse. And at the end of the day, it's really, for me, is about the project and the team that's working on it and the writing. And for me, everything just sort of came together. I was able to put something together last minute, and it just kind of worked out. I didn't find out for about a month later, because usually when people are auditioning over the holidays, it takes them a while. People are kind of gone over Hanukkah and Christmas and New Year's, and so I didn't find out until January, which was about 3 to 4 weeks later. So for all you actors who think that it's over, it's not over till it's over. But anyway, I was really excited when it happened, and yeah, I mean, the project, I don't know, I'm really honored to be a part of it. I think that the show is wonderful. I don't know if you've seen it, but
yeah,
I think it speaks to a lot of people, a lot of different themes and subjects, and it says a lot. And I think Taffy's writing is pretty incredible. So.
And your first scene where you're introduced to Jesse's character is you've just had been an alcohol issue and you're wheeled into hospitals. Right?
Yeah. So I am, I have a liver condition that Karen is born with, and eventually this drinking binge that she had in Vegas sort of triggered it. And she is unconscious, and there was this whole, I had to go into special effects. We had makeup runs and makeup trials, and they have a medical team on board for things like that to, try to figure out what someone with Wilson's, that's the name of Karen's disease, would look like, and what stage is she in. And there were many different shades of yellow until we settled on the right one. Yeah, it was, I don't know, it got very, very yellow at one point because we weren't sure how it would read on camera. And then I remember I showed up to set, and when I didn't even really meet Jesse. He didn't introduce himself to me because I think he was so taken aback by my appearance. I showed up and I was just like very highlighter yellow, and all the producers just sort of stared at me and they were like, what are we? I think I don't think that maybe we should take it down a little bit. So watching everyone's face realize that we had to tone it down a little bit, but stuff like that is always different on camera and different with lighting. And they can adjust certain things after the fact. But that was, yes, Karen, unfortunately, is in the hospital, unconscious, for a lot of my work. And then, of course, I have that one great moment with Jesse. But the Vegas trip did not agree with Karen, unfortunately, so much. Yeah.
You talk about what a great crew it was. What was it like working with Jesse and Lizzie?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get to do anything with Lizzie. We didn't have any scenes together. But Jesse he's so down to earth, and he's very, very sweet. He's also one of those people that he wants to get to know everything about everyone. He asks everyone on set, where they went to school or where they're from or what their parents do. And I kind of get this idea that he actually remembers stuff. My dad is kind of like that, he'll 5 years later, he'll say, hey, how's that guy doing who's from Boise, Idaho, whose dad was a farmer, and he remembers everything. And I feel like Jesse is kind of like that. And he takes a real interest in people. And it was really nice getting to see him work too, because his character, especially a lot of those hospital scenes, he has a lot to say, of like mouthfuls of dialogue, and watching him as an actor try to get those things out. And it showed me that he really is a very down to earth, real person. Like I really loved working with him. And it was very funny. We had when we shot that scene that we had together in his office, he, at the time, I was pregnant, and so he knew I was pregnant. And when the whole, I don't, spoiler alert here, but there was whole like licking of the face thing came up. And he was very concerned that there might be something in his makeup that could be harmful to me or the baby. I was like, I think it's okay. We're probably just going to do it once or twice. But it was very funny and very sweet. But yeah, it was a great experience.
Well, he is a dad in the show.
Yes.
So for those people who don't know or haven't seen it yet, tell them a little bit about what the premise is and what they're gonna see.
Yeah, so he plays a liver specialist who works in a hospital in New York, and he's married to, well, when the show starts, he's divorced from Claire Danes' character, Rachel, and they have 2 kids together. And the story is really about him kind of finding himself, and he gets on dating apps. So it's about him having this sort of rebirth of his, single years, and, also about shared custody and trying to figure out what that means for the 2 of them. It's also a lot about middle age and kind of like the expectations that we have growing up, and where we should be, and the things that are supposed to make us happy, and then what the reality of that is. And I found that particularly resonant. I mean, I think a lot of us do, whether you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, that sort of middle of life, what am I supposed to be doing, and the pressures of what that's supposed to look like. And there's this amazing scene at the end of the show with Lizzie and Jesse, and they're sitting on the, let me know if you know what I'm talking about. They're sitting on the floor, and they have this conversation about this hypothetical book that her character might write, because she's saying, oh, I should reinvest myself. I should start working again, and I'm going to start writing. And the hypothetical story is Toby Fleishman's story. And while she's talking about his story and what happens throughout the course of the show, and what happens when his wife disappears. So Rachel Fleishman sort of disappears, and we don't know why, but she kind of, is MIA for a lot of the show. And we eventually find out. But Lizzie, I think her character's name is actually Libby, but she starts to realize things about herself and her own marriage. And, she lives in New Jersey and has this sort of suburban, picture perfect life, but she's not happy. And it's the themes in that scene and in the show are so beautiful. The way Taffy sort of wraps it up, and it gets me every time. I've actually watched that scene numerous times, because as an actor, as a woman, I just feel like I didn't want to miss anything. And the performances are so lovely, and the writing is so good, that I feel like if you want to know what Fleischman's in Trouble is about, I feel like that scene and the last 5 minutes of the show, really, Taffy does a great job of, if you have any questions about what her writing or what the show is about, that sums it up. So
yeah, I'm with you. It was just so realistic too. And even the kids' performances, just the things that
oh
they would say too, are just so realistic and what.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about, you've had quite a journey and you've done so much. I mean, from Broadway to off-Broadway theater. Let's kind of just talk about where you started and how this journey began for you.
Yeah, so I'm from New Orleans, and I started doing community theater there when I was 5 years old. So the journey started a long time ago for me, and I not only love acting and I loved the stage, I loved music, um, but I loved the people that were involved with that creative process. And so for me, I I chose the life not only because that's who I was, and I felt that it sort of chose me, not to be cliche, but I feel like everyone finds their calling, right? We find the things that we're talented in, those gifts that we're given in life, and we're lucky enough to be able to use them, then we do it. But I chose it also because the people that are involved with it just felt like kindred spirits to me. They're exciting, they're always reaching for something, and in a way, like never satisfied, which can sort of be heartbreaking. But also those people who are never truly just satisfied and complacent are the ones I feel like that are doing groundbreaking things and creating new things and pushing themselves and pushing the people that work with them. And so I went on to college and I studied theater, musical theater actually, at Cincinnati Conservatory, and then moved straight to New York and started doing theater and off Broadway and then eventually Broadway. And then I went out to LA because why not? I mean, partly because the winters here they just kill me. They're just really hard. Like a lot of people, the gray cold. And so that was part of the reason, but also I just sort of I needed a little change. And I was always interested in doing TV and film. I had done a little bit here and there, but I think in a way that I felt like as long as I was doing theater, I would never really invest myself in pursuing TV and film, because not that it was a cushion, but it was another outlet for me. And I felt like I needed to kind of rip the band-aid off. And if I wanted to investigate this other interest I had, this other talent I had, that I had to kind of to actually, immerse myself in it. And so I moved out to LA. I loved LA. I still love LA. And my now husband, longtime boyfriend at the time, his business kind of took off in New York, and luckily, I can do what I love in LA or New York, and so I ended up back here, and here I am. And then when I came back here, I continued to do TV and film, and yeah, I love New York and I love LA. I mean, the cities are quite polar opposite in a lot of ways, except that they're full of people who are really wanting to do wonderful things and sort of shake up whatever industry they're involved in, and I love that about both of those places. So
And how is it for you? Like, I'm sure there's a love and a passion for you being on stage with a live audience and having that experience, and then also being on a set with a crew. Like, what's the difference, or how do you
God,
feel those?
it's so different. I mean, I love the theater, and there is definitely the energy that is exchanged between audience and the performers that are on the stage. You can't replace that. It's inexplicable. When the actors are kind of in a groove on stage, and that the audience is getting what you're doing, and they're appreciating it, and there's kind of like an immediate gratification. And obviously when you're working with a crew and when you're working on a TV show or a movie, there's a little bit of uncertainty. You feel sometimes like, I feel like that work was good. I hope that reads, or and at some point you have to let it go, because it is about the process, and it is about those moments that happen between two actors on screen, and we all second guess ourselves in life. But I find, in theater also, it happens and then it's gone. And then when you do something on film, it's there forever. So, but I mean, they're just completely different worlds, other than the fact that, there are people who are creating and storytelling. It's really all about the storytelling. So
Do you remember your first time on Broadway?
yeah, I do. I was doing Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Mm.
Everybody remember that one? I grew up with that movie.
Yeah.
Um, and it was a remarkable experience. I was understudying the lead, and I really never expected to go on. I was in my early to mid 20s, and God, it's horrible. I mean, has it been that long? But I don't remember what happened to her, if there was a death in the family or if she was sick, but I think I was thrown on in previews or something like that. And I went on opposite Raul Esparza, and he was very wonderful and very lovely and giving. And I remember him saying, "Do you want to do anything? Do you want to go over anything?" And I felt very confident. I mean, I know I've been doing it my whole life, but you think when that moment happens that you're going to completely just freak out. and and I didn't. It's funny how when you surprise yourself like that, I guess, when you train and you work hard and that moment happens, sometimes something in you just kind of comes to the surface and reminds yourself that, this is what you're ready. You've been doing this your whole life. And whether it's acting or whatever field you're in, I feel like that happens.
Yeah. And a testament to you to being ready, and clearly were doing your understudy role and were ready to be there when that opportunity came for you.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like I wasn't nervous. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I got this. but I mean, in some ways, you have to sort of be that cheerleader for yourself and remind yourself when opportunities present themselves that, this is who you are. And also that the reason, most actors choose this career is because they love it. And if you're not enjoying it and if you're not having fun, then what is the point? I mean, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be enjoyable. So there is always a lot of pressure, whether you're doing a role in a TV show or on a Broadway stage. Of course, there is pressure. But you have to be your own coach and remind yourself that yes, there's pressure, but it's fun and I enjoy it. So
And now in the TV world, you've done everything from daytime soap operas to primetime to The Mentalist. Talk about some of the shows you've worked on or some of your favorites.
yeah, so I love doing. I had a recurring on Days of Our Lives, and it's funny because when I got that part, I was so excited. Um, it was kind of like the first, recurring thing that I had done, and I didn't know though at the time that my character was dead. So there was a finite it was a finite moment for my character at the time.
Well, not all
Um,
a soap opera, though.
that's true. Anybody can come back. Anybody comes back. You're very, very, or they have a twin. They have an evil twin. That happens a lot. Um, but it was great. It was also really cool to be in a makeup chair next to people that I had seen on TV when I was, younger, who have been working in the daytime world for, 20, 30 years. And it was an interesting, though, the character was, I was doing a monologue into the camera. So my character was recording something to be seen by someone later. She thought her husband was trying to kill her. And so she made this video, and I didn't actually get to act off of another actor. And a lot of times we find safety in each other because you're not creating the moment is occurring. You're making choices, you're present with the other actor, and then kind of magic happens. And that's what good acting really is about. I mean, you come to the table with certain things and then you let the rest happen. But in this particular instance, it was kind of felt like theater work a little bit because it was a monologue and it was just me on the set. And I must say, at the beginning, I was very nervous because, you're on a set with people who have been doing Days of Our Lives for a really long time, and you're the newbie, and there's pages and pages of monologue. But everybody was very, very kind, and it was a lot of fun. I also worked on The Mentalist. And I don't know, it was fun. I think it was the last episode or the second to last episode. So I was glad that I was able to do that right before it ended. I know it was on for a really long time, and I used to be a big fan of the show. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of the cool things too that you do sometimes are those things that people don't even know about. You know, like a little independent film here or there. I worked on a just a short when I lived in LA that was with a director, Amanda Moresco, and we just one night did this, 10-minute film. And I just feel like it was, magic. Like you can tell when people get together and they're like doing something cool, and we were all like on the same page, and the energy was really great. And so yeah, I mean, I've had some pretty, I've been very lucky, and it's been kind of done like a wide array of things. But I've had a lot of fun, and I've been very lucky, I think.
What are some of the, lessons you learned or things that you wish you knew sooner?
Oh, I wish that I knew that there was no like right way to do something, like a right way to read a scene, that it was really just about what you bring to the table and your uniqueness and the choices you make. And I wish that when I was younger, I had had more confidence in myself, because I feel like that might have opened up more doors for me when I was younger. I it is very interesting. Sometimes I feel like the people that you think are the most confident and sure of themselves struggle with anxiety or struggle with self-doubt in really big ways. And it can be so self-destructive. And I mean, being an actor, there's nothing to make you feel more unsure of yourself than choosing to be an actor. But I always say if one of my children wants to do that, I will support them. I was very lucky. I had parents who supported me, but I want to get them a good therapist early in life because, it really tests your mettle. It tests how much you know yourself and how much you believe in yourself. And so I wish that I had just known that there was no right way. And all the voices you hear telling you things, you take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes there are people, teachers who know better than you, or people that you look up to that give you little nuggets here and there. They give you advice, and you take those things. If they have a critique, you take them. I mean, the college I went to was pretty cutthroat, and they would let you know exactly how they thought you were doing. And it prepared me. But you also have to take that with a grain of salt. Otherwise, it'll just kill you. So
Yeah. With all of your experience, now you're using your voice as in your platform to speak out against about certain things that you faced or have witnessed through your career. And one of those is, typecasting and ageism in Hollywood for women. What do you think or say about those issues?
I mean, there's so much to say about it. I mean, it's kind of a broad subject, so we could go on and on about that. But I will say, a typecasting is just something that everyone faces. I mean, I even feel like, you know, people that are, A-list celebrities are typecast. So it's nothing that's like, unique to me. But it is, it can be frustrating because a lot of times how you see yourself is not how other people see you. And a lot of times the industry will dictate to you what it is that you're going to do, especially, early in your career, even in the middle, or I don't know, throughout your career. And so, we as human beings we're all very complex people. So to pigeonhole people, pigeonhole creatives, it seems sort of counterintuitive to what the industry is about. The industry is about, creating, and, what we study as actors is, how to use who we are, and then also use our imagination to create someone that we're not. So it's a combination of those things. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy. And then as far as the ageism, well, there's ageism everywhere. That is definitely not unique to the entertainment industry. I mean, I feel like everyone faces it. I feel like everyone faces it, but I will say I feel like women definitely face it, a lot more than men do. I feel like that is sort of indisputable. I don't know. Maybe someone would like to dispute me on that. But I just feel like the pressure on women in society today to stay young and to stay beautiful, and it's not realistic. This kind of unrealistic body image. I mean, now, everything is airbrushed and touched up, and we think that that's how we're supposed to look in real life. And I do think that I see a glimmer of hope in the industry, because there's a lot of people writing stuff that just want people. They don't want Barbies. They don't want people with like no marks on their face. They're writing real stories, and they want real people to tell those stories. And so I really do think that that is happening. With, I mean, I guess, I don't know even how long it's been happening now, 5 to 10 years. I feel like, with the emergence of Amazon shows and Netflix shows and Apple TV, and like just the content that we're watching, I think is changing and is becoming a little more grounded and a little more gritty and a little more reflective of real life. And I definitely appreciate that. So I just think that as women, we really have to be advocates for that. I mean, we all fall into the trap, I have my skincare regimen. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love it. Like, I want to stay looking good. I mean, it is part of, not even just the industry, but just life, right? But at the end of the day, like, isn't it sort of about who we are inside and what we're bringing to the world and what we're bringing to the table? And there's so much pressure put on people, especially women, to appear a certain way, and not enough focus on who we are and the good that we do. And I know it sounds sort of silly and hokey, but nobody talks about it anymore. And now that I have kids, I'm like reminded to sort of model that for them, because if they don't see it in me, how are they going to learn it?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's been really interesting the past few years.
Mm-hmm. And I know you also said now that being a parent, it's also you're passionate about talking to other women about balancing parenting and a career.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it definitely changes your priorities. Um, it also kind of just sort of flips your world upside down. Yeah, I had my first child later in life, and I had this entire existence where I was a single woman and only had to focus on myself. So then all of a sudden, I have, a human being that needs me, and what that does to your insides, the things that it makes you think about and question. I mean, first thing, it kind of expands you in this really great, awesome way. For better or for worse, it sort of expands your whole emotional life. But it I don't know, it makes you question like what it is that you really want in life. And for me, I have sort of come back to the idea that I have to remain who I am, and who I am, and the gifts that I have, and the career that I chose before I became a mother. And it is very interesting how the entertainment industry views women and motherhood. And I was very nervous when I had to kind of reveal to the team at Fleishman that I was pregnant. There's this whole, period where, you're thinking, is this a viable pregnancy? Like, am I going to even, am I gonna, is something gonna happen? Like, when do I reveal this? And not even just to the people that you work with, but your family, friends. Like, you don't tell everyone right away. And so I remember I was kind of in the clear, and we actually just had the scene with Jesse to shoot, which if you watch the show, it's really the only scene where I was like, this is the one that could, you could see that I maybe had a baby bump, or I might have to reveal something. And it was the last one that we shot. So I remember I was so nervous to tell them. I was afraid that they were going to be upset, or that they were going to, feel inconvenienced if they had to move up a shoot, and everybody could not have been more lovely. So all of my fears were, in vain. And everyone was supportive and congratulatory. And, even when I got to set, I remember Sherry Springer Berman, the director. I remember her telling me congratulations, and I said, "Oh, thank you so much." And she said, that's real life. That's what life is about. And this is just awesome and fun. And she's like, but that's awesome. And there were a lot of women involved in that production. I mean, the writer is a woman. A lot of the directors were actually married couple teams. And then a lot of the producers were women, and everybody was very, very understanding. And I do feel, once again, like the industry is changing with regards to that, being supportive of women who want to be mothers and then, want to come back and say, hey, I'm not just a mom now that, I gave birth. I'm still me and I'm still an artist and I'm still an individual. And it's nice to see that people are starting to recognize that.
Mm-hmm. You also have a big heart and do a lot of philanthropy and give back. You want to talk about some of the organizations that you're involved with?
Yeah, so I worked for a bit with an organization called Women to the Front, and it has been a little while since I've worked with them, since I've had my kids. They've taken up a lot of my free time. But they do a lot of fundraising for small 501(c)(3) nonprofit organizations that are progressive organizations that support women, that support voting rights. It just sort of depends on what the political climate is, what the need is out there. One of the organizations that they fundraise for is an organization called Southern Echo. And they are based down in Mississippi, and they do a lot of work with redistricting and trying to teach communities about how to draw those redistricting maps themselves so that they can present them to the state legislatures, so that they can have a voice. I know that there's been a lot of awareness raised about that recently with, what's going on politically in the world. And it really does make a difference. There are so many people in this country that don't have voices because of the way that the voting maps are drawn. And a lot of those people don't have the representation and don't have the education to come forward and bring that to their state legislatures to actually make change. So they've done a lot of stuff with voting, a lot of stuff with women's rights. And it's just they do really, really wonderful work, Women to the Front. Also, my husband has he's a restaurateur, and he has a few waterfront restaurants in New York City, and a couple of them are on boats, really cool historic boats, and they are oyster bars, seafood focused, and they do a lot of work with Billion Oyster Project, which is trying to kind of rejuvenate the oyster beds in New York Harbor. And the menus are, our chef Carrie Heffernan does a lot of, sustainable seafood and things like that. So those are some of my passions.
Yeah, that leads me in. I want to know more about the boats. I love that when I read that, dude. I was like, I have to hear about this, how you got involved in that, and just more about that.
Yeah, so my husband and I are both from New Orleans. We met in New York, funny enough. We both had to come to New York to meet our soulmate in, from New Orleans. But he started off as a boat guy. He can kind of fix anything. He figures out anything. It's pretty incredible. But so he started out, getting boats and fixing them up, and then either flipping them or creating businesses around them. And then he and his brother thought, wouldn't it be cool? We should have a bar on a boat. We should have an oyster bar on a boat, because who doesn't want to have oysters and cocktails on a boat? And so they did, and their first restaurant was Grand Banks, which is in Tribeca in New York on the water. And you really don't feel like you're in the city when you're there. It's, in the summertime, I always, sometimes I'll think, oh, I want to go somewhere else because I go there a lot. But then I think, where else do I want to go? Nowhere. When I can be on the water and the sunsets are beautiful and the food is great. And then they have quite a few other places now, but yeah, I mean, it's just, he's kind of become this restaurateur, and I'm so proud of him. And they're sort of expanding. They have a couple more land-based places now that are not just waterfront, but it's very interesting. Little fact that no one knew about me is that are you ready? I know, I feel like you're excited. So he started a sailboat charter company years and years ago when we first met. And, in between acting jobs, I was a deckhand, and I learned how to sail. And I remember, it's very funny. There were numerous times that I would toss the line into the water and the captain would be quite upset with me. So, don't give up your day job, Julie. Stick to acting. But I did develop a love for it. And there's really, other than, shooting a TV show or being on the stage, there's nothing like being on the water.
Do you guys take a lot of boating trips then?
We haven't. I mean, I feel like we take a lot of trips that are by the water or, beach based vacations. But we've never actually gone on a trip that was, a chartered sailboat or something like that. I feel like we should do that. Have you done that?
No, I haven't.
Because I know you grew up by the water too.
But yeah, just on a lake. So I've always loved boats. My uncle was a boat salesman, so I was just always fascinated by boats all the time.
Yeah,
I go
yeah.
to boat shows. I just love to see them. I just think it's
Yes.
so great about being on the water.
Yeah, the Newport Boat Show. Have you been? It's so great. When you
No,
come out
I've
east,
been to that one.
it's a good one.
We go to the boat parade down in Naples every Christmas, where they decorate their boats.
I've heard about this. Yeah, yeah.
It's amazing. It's so much fun. It's you got to do it if you're ever out here for the holidays.
Yes, please.
And I know where I'm going to go eat next time I come to New York City too.
Yes, please do. Just
Or,
let me know before you come so we can take care of you.
oh, that's sweet of you.
I mean, I hope they give everyone good service, but
Awesome. One more thing I want to ask you about, because I know I've seen some adorable pictures. You're a big rescue dog and cat person. Talk about
I am. I know you are too.
yeah.
I did my research too. Yeah, so we've had rescue dogs for a long time, and I just don't understand why you would, buy a dog or a cat when there's so many great pets, that are waiting for good homes. And um, yeah, we have my dog Sam right now. She's 14. I've had her since she was a puppy, but I rescued her from a shelter in Long Island, North Shore Animal League. So anybody out in New York or Long Island, go to North Shore Animal League. They've got a good group of puppies and kittens, old dogs too. Senior dogs really are the ones that really need a lot of love. Yeah, we have another rescue. Bless his heart. He's kind of a mess. His name is Harry. He's a German Shepherd. And we always say that Harry's not quite as smart as he looks.
Oh. And German Shepherds are usually really smart.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
I think Harry has had quite a few owners before us, and I know why. And our other dog, it's funny enough, has never really accepted Harry. She does not like him too much. And when we realized that, we tried to find another home for Harry. I was like, this isn't fair to this dog. He should be in a place where everyone loves him, and we didn't have luck. And I was not okay with just leaving him somewhere, leaving him with anyone. I wanted to find him the right home.
Yeah.
And here we are. Was it 4 or 5 years later? 5 years later, Harry's still here.
Do they get
And then
better? Oh,
mm,
no.
it's just the status quo. We're just a zoo here. And then I have a cat that was a stray when I lived in Los Angeles. I had a small little studio in Hollywood, and I would hear her meowing. And it started off where I would feed her, and she was super friendly. So either she had been someone's cat, we scanned her for a chip to make sure she didn't belong to anyone else, and um, or she'd just been around people her whole life, and she was very friendly. And I would feed her, and then I would call her at night, and she of course was sleeping inside my apartment. And there are coyotes and raccoons and plenty of cars, and I didn't want her to get hurt, so she would sleep inside. And then when I moved back east, I felt bad taking her away from her stomping grounds, right? Like this was her hood. This was where she lived. Like this was her, I feel like she owned that neighborhood. But I didn't want her to get hurt, and I felt this responsibility to take care of her. So Kitty got on a plane with me and got relocated to Brooklyn. So now Kitty lives in Brooklyn with me. But yeah, I really there was a while where I was going to shelters and um, taking pictures of dogs and trying to get them adopted. And um, if I'm being perfectly honest, I didn't have the stomach for it. It was really upsetting, and hopefully there are people who have the stomach for that because it's a very worthy cause. But for some reason, animals just really tug at my heartstrings, and I feel like if I had 3 acres out somewhere, maybe if I move back to California one day and get a lot of land and I can have a dog sanctuary and I can take them all. But obviously, especially in New York, I'm not We already have 3 pets. I have 3 pets and 2 children. It's crazy in here. Um, yeah. So, but yes, please adopt. It's nice to see that some states now are outlawing breeding and pet stores and things like that. So I think that that's a step forward in the right direction. But
yeah, it's definitely it's hard. When I fostered for a while, and I'm with you. I loved it. On one hand, it was so great, because it was nice to kind of help have a little impact or part of these dogs' lives. But I was so torn up every time,
how did you let go of them? I mean, you must have gotten attached and
it was really hard, and because a couple of them, would go with somebody that I knew wasn't right, even when it was getting placed, and
so
but
hard.
yeah, and that's what was hard for me, is because I was like, no, I knew like this isn't gonna work. So they would
Yeah.
keep being, kind of tossed back. So
So how many do you have?
I have one.
Oh God, how did you escape?
No. Well, I'm kind of same with you. I'm renting right now, and I'm like, if I wish I could, have more land, a bigger backyard, I would
Yeah, definitely.
a bunch of them in. But
Yeah, boats and dogs.
yeah, boats and dogs. We're gonna gotta move back to Nebraska, and I can have all of that. Anyway, well, before I let you go, is there any advice you have for people who maybe want to be like you, aspiring actors out there?
Make sure that you really love it when you set yourself on the path. And then just really believe in yourself. Do the work, and then believe in yourself and let it go. Trusting in yourself is the hardest thing. As an actor, it's necessary. You can't be questioning yourself while you're doing your work. You can't be questioning yourself while you're auditioning. You have to do the work and then know who you are, and then let it go. And I also would say that it is very important. It's been important for me to find other things I love in life, because I feel like it makes you a better actor. And that might not be the case for everyone. I know everyone's journey is different as an artist, but I feel like it makes you a more full person, and therefore I feel like it makes you a more full actor. So that would be my other piece of advice.
That's great advice. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so before I let you go, where can everybody see your work?
Well, right now, Fleishman is in Trouble is streaming on Hulu. So go to Hulu and check it out. It's great. The cast is wonderful. The writing's amazing. And it's a really, really incredible show.
Well, I want to thank you so much. You're absolutely amazing. It was so great to have the time to talk with you and listen to you.
So great to talk to you.
I appreciate it. All right. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And you can follow along with all things Tom Girl at Tom Girl TV on Instagram, Facebook, and the website. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode. We'll see you next time, and get out there.